Daredevil Born Again, episode 9, straight to hell. We're going straight to hell. Apparently, season finale, not the part 1 finale, not the part 1 season finale, but the actual season finale, which means the next season it'll be season 5. Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end. And I don't know. I feel like we're being gypped. I feel like we're being gypped. Because originally we were supposed to get 18 episodes. They decided to break those 18 episodes up into 2 parts. And it's being written off. I know there's some reshoots and everything, but it's being written off as 2 different seasons. Because season 5, the next season of Daredevil Born Again, doesn't start until March of next year. So that's so we basically got to wait a whole year for that. But if they're bringing back the people who I think we're bringing back, then it'll all be worth it. And it's your boy Icon with another Marvel television review for you, going over that Daredevil Born Again. And before we get started, hit that notification bell, like it or subscribe. Check out my other reviews so we can boost these watch time hours. And let's get started with some Daredevil action in New York City. So, the episode starts with Vanessa because they show us the scene where she actually went to Pondexter and she told him, like, I need you to kill Foggy Nelson and break him out of prison. One of Foggy's witnesses basically turned on her organization, and at risk of him blowing up her entire organization, she hired Poindexter to kill him. After we get that scene, then it takes us to current times where we see Fisk and Vanessa. They're in the house together, and then Fisk was just like, I wanted to save the city. But he's like, things change. So he said that thanks to you, you made the business millions. But with me, we can make billions. And when he said that, she ain't seemed too happy about that because she gave him the look like, what you trying to say, motherfucker, bro? But now he's not even trying to make the city safe. Now he's just out for his own agenda. Matt was in the hospital, and then when he was in the hospital, Kristen's ass was in the hospital, and then she pissed me off again. And he did a very poor job of telling her to kick rocks because like when he was talking to McDuffie, he was just like, oh, he said that Foggy was killed by Mrs. Fisk, and that he was like that night. She had information that Foggy was going to win his case, and she tried to silence him before that happened. And then here goes Kristen. Oh, but the Fists were targets tonight. Oh, I bet you nobody talking to you. Nobody talking to you. And then he was just like, then Matt told her, he was like, he's like, I know you love the Fist family, but he was just like, he's like, they're dirty, and I'm going to prove it. And then she's like, maybe I'll come back later, Matt. I'm like, don't come back at all, bitch. so she gone, and then later on, she joins Fist's administration. So, say la vie, good riddance to bad rubbish. Now we're back on the streets, and then Fisk was talking to his boys, and then they were just like, oh, the lawyer, how's the lawyer doing? How's Murdoch doing? And then the guy was just like, he said, well, he's in the hospital and he's recovering fine. But then that's when Fisk told him, he was like, look, he's like, we'll go down there and kill him. Because he said, because like, it wasn't like kill Daredevil, it was like get rid of Mac Murdoch. Because he was basically saying he was just like, like a hero lawyer is better than a vigilante, than a pissed off vigilante. So then he ends up telling Sheila, he's just like, get me access to the power grid. And then she was just like, but you can't do that. And then he was like, don't tell me what I can't do. So, she sends in the Con Ed guy to give him access to the city's power grid. And then he shuts off the power. After he shuts off the power, Sheila was talking to the police commissioner, and then he was just like, that son of a bitch Fisk, he's like, he got to go. And then she was just like, well, you can file a motion against him in the Supreme Court, but she's like, I can't help you with that. And then he was just like, all right, but if I need you, I know who to call. She recorded their entire conversation, played it back for Fisk to save her own ass because Fisk told her, he was like, anyone who's not loyal, kick him out of the building. And I guess she didn't want to be caught in the crossfire, so she betrayed the commissioner to save her own ass. When Fisk's boy got to the hospital, Matt had heard him creeping, and then the power went out. He tried to jig Matt Murdock, I guess with a lethal injection, but Matt got out of the way before, he got out of there before that was able to go down, so he didn't die. He goes back to his apartment, and then when he gets back to his apartment, Punisher is in his kitchen looking for coffee. And then, Matt laughed, and he was just like, you're the last person I expected to be here. And then Punisher said, he was like, well, Red, he said that I got a phone call asking me to save your ass, so that's why I'm here. And then as soon as he said that, I said, Jesus Christ, Karen Page is coming back. And then he asked him, he was like, oh, who made the phone call? And he was like, none of your business. And I was just like, Jesus fucking Christ, Karen Page is coming back. So after that, and he was just like, that fanboy group is on their way to your apartment. And he said, I'm not doing the kumbaya shit. He was like, I'm killing them. So when they stormed the apartment, both Daredevil and the Punisher fought him off. And then after they fought him off, somebody had threw grenades into his apartment. Daredevil and Punisher jumped out of the window, and Matt's apartment exploded, so now he doesn't have a place to live. And then when the two of them like landed on the floor, because he used like his zip line baton thingy to like, get them to the ground, as soon as him and the Punisher hit the ground, a car pulls up and Jesus Christ, it's Karen Page. So now I was like, she could have just stayed in San Francisco. All you have to do is just make the phone call and then just let Punisher do, like, we didn't need you in New York. So I can't stand Karen Page. So anyway, she tells him to get in. She takes him back to Punisher's hideout. And then after that, Punisher's like, yo, I'm not doing this Inspector Gadget shit trying to like save the city. He said, you asked me for a favor. I did a favor. That was it. She's like, I don't buy it, Frank. She's like, I don't think that you don't care. And he was like, bitch, I did the favor and I'll do. So they left. After they left, the Punishers of New York City, like they were on the streets. Punisher rolled up on them in the streets. They got into a fight. They beat his ass and basically dragged him back to Fisk. And, he told them, they was just like, first they tried to reason with him. They were just like, Frank, they said that, why don't you join us? Why don't you lead us? Because we can do big things for the city. And then he was like, you think you know me? He was like, you think you know my pain? He's like, you think you know why I do this and what I go through? He's like, you're all a bunch of fucking clowns. And then they knocked him out and dragged him to Fisk. Because Sheila had set up the commissioner ended up being brought before Wilson Fisk. Fisk beat his ass and literally split his skull. He basically squeezed his skull like a grape and crushed it in 50 million pieces. And yeah, that was disgusting. I don't know how they did that. I don't know how they did that. Because the juice was not worth the squeeze on that one. So the commissioner's gone now. Sheila has to live with that because she set him up. Now Fisk goes on national TV and he's just like, martial law is in effect and all vigilante activity is hereby silenced or else. No body cam footage. And I'm like, oh shit. So his people are just out there running roughshod, just killing people left and right. That there was even one moment where like they killed some kid who was coming out of a store, and then when one cop was like, damn, Frankie, you killed a kid, he's like, no, I didn't. He pulled the kid's hat over his face and he was like, this was a masked vigilante. And I said, Jesus, F. I'm like, yeah, trigger. If you're like, yeah, triggering with this one. So the police were out there running roughshod. They showed a nice little shot of Angela, Angelica, aka the new White Tiger. And the thing with that with her whole scene, when they showed her looking at the police officers and then she just looked and just walked away, before she walked away, I wish the camera would have paused to allow us to see the White Tiger emblem in her hand. But we didn't get to see that. So that they're holding on to. They're holding on to that. So then Karen and Matt, they go someplace nobody cares. They start talking about shit. They start talking about their love lives between the weird triangle between him, Karen, and the Punisher, which nobody cared about. Then they started talking about Foggy. She gave him the speech, and then that's when Matt told her he was like, we need an army. And as soon as he said that we needed an army, I was like, so basically you going to Harlem, you going to Chinatown, and you going to West 45th Street to go holler at the Defenders. Like, let's stop the bullshit. Let's stop the bullshit. So, and this was crazy too, because when Fisk was having dinner with Vanessa and they were downstairs in his basement, all the people that weren't on board with Fisk's plan, he threw them in cages, Punisher included. It's not like he basically confined them to their apartments. He literally locked them in cages. And that's the weirdest thing, because the only thing that was running through my mind was like, how the hell do these people use the bathroom? I was like, why are they in cages? Literally, not in a prison, because he's the mayor now. He has access to prisons. He could have put them in a prison. He straight up just had them in cages. That's crazy. That's crazy. And the Punisher was in the cage too. Even the swordsman guy was in the cage. A lot of people were in cages. And then, then finally, in the last scene, Matt Murdock was talking to Karen again. And then she was just be the hero or something. She said some shit. And then he gets up, he goes into a room, and then we realize he's at Josie's, and along at Josie's bar is obviously Josie, because it's her bar. His boy Cherry, he's there. Detective Kim, who was in the episode with the bank robbery, she was there. So I'm like, okay, so she actually did serve some sort of purpose for being on the show. And there were also some police officers that were to the right side that looked like obviously cops that didn't agree with Fisk. And I'm like, where's the black dude? I forgot his name. The black cop that was friends with Foggy, that would always give them information and everything when they were doing the lawyer thing. And then then he got promoted, and then he ended up popping up in the Punisher series. He was in the episode where they were in like the building and then like the Punisher took over and he was the one interviewing Karen throughout that entire episode. I can't remember his name, but he was like the black cop that became a detective. I was like, where was he? Because I'm pretty sure he doesn't agree with anything that Wilson Fisk is doing either. But like there's one character that we didn't get to see yet, but it's all pretty interesting. And then after that, basically Daredevil just gave a speech about how we're gonna take the city back. I don't know why he wasn't in, like when he was giving that whole verbal speech and he was just like, oh, the city is this and the city is that and we're gonna take it back. We're stronger together. Blah blah blah. When he said while he was giving that speech, at the end of that speech, you should have seen Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage standing in that bar. I didn't need Josie. I didn't need Kim. I didn't need Cherry. I didn't need the police. He needed the defenders in that goddamn bar. But I guess contracts aren't fully signed yet. But this needs to happen. Like when he said, "Thank you for tuning in," by the way, because that was how the season ended with him giving the speech about how they're gonna take the city back. My whole thing is clearly this is where it's headed. He's gonna, because he said we need an army. So unless you go get Captain America, we're pretty much forming a team here. It's gonna be Daredevil. It's gonna be Luke Cage. It's gonna be Jessica Jones. It's gonna be Iron Fist. It's gonna be the Punisher. Because in a post-credit scene, the Punisher broke out of his cage, and I'm like, well, that didn't take long. Like he wasn't in the cage forever. So then it's gonna be Punisher. It's gonna be White Tiger. Maybe we get Kamala Khan. Who knows? Because she had an episode. They had an episode where they brought her name up 50 million times. Like Jersey's right across the water. So maybe we'll get Kamala Khan. Maybe he'll recruit her. So we got a couple of things coming up here. As I said, Angela, the new White Tiger, and everything. Unfortunately, Karen got to be here. But share your questions. Now, if they bring back Jessica Jones, it would be nice if Fisk breaks Trish Walker out of prison and puts him on her team. But share your questions, comments, and concerns down below, and let's continue to talk about it. How do you think this will be resolved in season 9? I know in the comic, like something like this happened in one of the comic books, and I know that Luke Cage ended up running for mayor against Wilson Fisk. That would be cool. But in order for that to happen, what basically needs to happen is season 2 has to take place 4 years from now when his term is up. So there's no way he could run against him when the man just became mayor like 30 days ago. But I said we'll see what happens. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued for Daredevil Born Again. I say the yay. Check it out on Disney Plus. Share your questions, comments, and concerns. Check out my reviews for the previous 8 episodes and this one, and we will continue to talk about it. My review for Captain America: A Brave New World is up on my YouTube channel finally, and this weekend is WrestleMania weekend, and for the love of God, we're doing NXT nights 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania, and we're going to be talking about the wrestling up here on Loot Red Eyes Entertainment. Check me out on social media, on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, and YouTube, where you can leave those questions, comments, and concerns, because like I said, there's really not a lot of prediction here. Like we know where this is headed. We know where our bread is buttered. I just need that opening shot of him going to Harlem, going to Chinatown, and then hitting up Jessica Jones. So that was it, guys. So thank you for tuning in. So till next time, till next season for some more Daredevil, until the Defenders are born again, take care, and we're out this bitch!